For his parishioners, Father Udo Fischer is a hero, but for his superiors, he's a troublemaker. The Benedictine priest co-founded an initiative that's openly calling for protests against the church in Austria and its plans to merge parishes. The initiative's solution to the shortage of priests is to allow women and married men to be ordained, a huge break with tradition in the Catholic Church.
Of course, the bishops are against it. They weren't chosen by us, God's children. They were appointed by Rome and are accountable to Rome. They're shepherds who don't feel responsible for their flock. They only care about their own leaders in Rome. That's why they act the way they do.
The church authorities in Vienna want to resolve the shortage of priests by merging parishes and relying on a theological renewal.
A few months ago, the church leaders in Vienna began proceedings that serve to investigate God's will. It's about listening to what God wants from us in these times and how the church might look in the future.
Udo Fischer says a priest's main responsibilities lie with his parishioners. He has to be able to administer the sacraments. Discussing funeral preparations takes over half an hour. But how could a priest with tens of thousands of parishioners find the time?
The authorities have lost touch with the people. If the bishops really had their ears to the ground, they'd notice that our initiative is more a status report than a call for a kind of utopia.
There's no doubting the unrelenting faith of some parishioners. Take Josef from Switzerland, for example. Last year, he rode to the Spanish city of Santiago de Compostela. This year's pilgrimage takes him to Bratislava in Slovakia. And of course, he and his horse are welcomed by Father Udo. Sepp Rothwang lost his faith at a young age, after he was abused as a young boy by a Catholic priest. He dislikes the term abuse, calling himself instead a victim of sexual violence. The church covered up the incident. Rothwang went through emotional hell. Only decades later was he able to talk openly about his experiences. To underline his protest, he has closed off a pilgrim's trail running through his forest to priests accompanied by children.
Diese Schilder habe ich aufgestellt. I
put up these signs as a personal protest. I want to draw attention to how cases of sexual abuse in the church are dealt with here in Austria.
Sexuelle Misshandlung in der Kirche aufgearbeitet werden.
Rothwangel's protest made the headlines. The reports on sexual abuse and the lack of measures taken to deal with them has led to a lot of Austrians losing faith in the Catholic Church. Sepp Rothwangel's mother had a chapel built on his plot of land. He maintains the building, but has left the Catholic Church.
How can you reform the church from above when you have God himself at the top? He'd have to come down from heaven, and I can't see him.
It's the reluctance to allow reform that has seen an increasing number of Austrians turning their backs on the church. Many of its leaders appear to see no evil and hear no evil.
People aren't leaving the Catholic Church because of insufficient reforms. They simply don't get to know the power of faith sufficiently. Once you're aware of the power of faith at the heart of the Catholic Church, then the question of how quickly reforms come is of secondary importance.
That kind of statement leaves many of Udo Fischer's parishioners shaking their heads. They resent being told they lack faith and say the church has a credibility problem and question church dogma.
The Protestant Church allows ordained men to marry, and women can also be ordained. Why can't that work in the Catholic Church?
What's going on in the Catholic Church is terrible, not just in Austria, but across Europe. The Vatican is incapable of moving with the times and introducing reforms.
Trouble is brewing at the grassroots of the Catholic Church, and not only in Father Udo's parish.